Hello guys, so today I'm going to cover a lot of questions in this video that I get asked a lot from other trans guys here in Norway, and basically that is how this whole process has been for me so far and how long time it took between the different stages. To make sure I don't mess up with years and that kind of stuff, I've written this script, so that's the reason why I won't look straight at you but down here. So I'm sorry for that. If you just want to hear about my experience with Rikshospitalet, which is Norway's national gender clinic, then skip ahead to this time right here. So first we just skip ahead to the year of 2012. This was the first time I told anyone about me questioning my gender identity. But I quickly put it back on the shelf and I didn't pick it up again until 2014 when I told a few close people about it, and this time I knew what I had to do. Summer 2015 I came out to everyone. Then the practical journey started, and that's what I'm gonna talk about today. Spring 2015, so actually before I came out, I went to my doctor to be referred to a psychologist. But since I wasn't out yet and didn't know how my doctor would react, I didn't tell her the truth of why I wanted to speak with a psychologist. So I told her the reason was my social anxiety from old times coming back. I got referred to something called DPS here in Norway, but as with everything else, it was a waiting list, and there was also some delay, so I didn't get my first appointment with a psychologist until September that year. I was super nervous about talking to a psychologist because of bad experiences earlier in my life. Turned out I had good reason to be nervous. Listen closely, this is what happened. I got in the waiting room and waited. And waited. Other patients in the room got called up by their psychologist one by one, but I never heard my name. At that point I hadn't changed my name legally, so it was as always a quite awkward situation. Girl name but boy appearance, but still that's no good reason for what happened next. My psychologist actually never came and called for me. Though I saw one psychologist several times coming to the waiting area like he was looking for something, but never said a word. So my hour went by and I still sat there, waiting for something that didn't happen. And when my hour was over, I went down to the reception and explained the situation with my psychologist not appearing, and they apologized so much and gave me another appointment. But I was totally ruined. It was a super awkward situation for me, and can you imagine? First being so nervous for it and then waiting an hour with intense heart beating for something that didn't happen. It was horrible. Of course I told my parents about all of this, and my dad called and got in contact with the psychologist. The psychologist apologized as well and told my dad that he hoped I would come back for another appointment. In my mind I was so ready to never see a psychologist's office or waiting room ever again. But I got convinced and went for my other first appointment. And you would think the story is ending here, but that's not the case. This time my psychologist called my name out loud in the waiting room and we went to his office. First thing he did was to say he was sorry and to make up an excuse for why he did as he did last time. He said he might thought it was me who sat in the waiting room last time, but he thought I was a boy, so he didn't call my name out loud since it was a girl's name. And then he managed to say that today he understood it was me because he saw that I had earrings, and therefore I had to be a girl. Yes, you heard right, because of my earrings. I went to appointments with this psychologist for like a bit over a month. I don't think I could have gotten a worse psychologist, really. It was like talking to a stone. No, wait. A stone would actually be better to talk with. Seriously. He did barely speak, and it was an one-way conversation every single time. And on top of that, he didn't understand the whole transgender thing. He just wanted to talk about my earlier social problems, and every time I told him what I really needed help with, he just laughed it away basically. There were many other reasons for why I quitted my appointments with him, but I'm not going in details with that now. So I went back to my doctor, and this time I was prepared. I needed a psychologist with a little experience with the transgender topic. Someone that wasn't working against me. On the web pages to HBRS, I found a list of psychologists in the different regions of Norway that had experience with it. I found a few names, all of them were private, but one of them had an Helfo agreement, which means that you just have to pay a deductible. First I called him and he told me I had to be referred by my doctor. So I came out as transgender to my doctor and gave her this psychologist's name and address, and she referred me to him. I got a response in my mail which said that of course there was a waiting list and it was on 6 months. I couldn't wait for that long again. As I've said 100 times before in my other videos, I have super supportive parents, and they immediately offered to pay for a private psychologist. I happily accepted and sent an email to one of the other psychologists on the list. I got a response on that this psychologist was fully booked, but he recommended another private psychologist. It was a name that wasn't on the list, but I gave it a go and contacted him. Now we're in the end of October 2015. I got an appointment with him the next week, so the first week in November 2015. 2 weeks later, I got referred by him to Rikshospitalet, the national gender clinic in Norway. It went so quick, and he was so nice, and he was so prepared for my situation. It was such a relief. And it didn't become too expensive either, because I only needed 2 or 3 appointments with him. So if anyone in Rogaland needs the name of a great psychologist for transgender people, just hit me up. In November I also changed my name to Jonas, which was a long ride because my application got rejected twice before my 3rd application got approved. They rejected it because I hadn't started hormones yet, which was bullshit, so I contacted HBRS and they helped me a lot. So thanks to them. 1 year after, so fall 2017, I also changed my gender from F to M in my passport and everything. But back to it. In December 2015, I got a letter from Rikshospitalet where they approved the referral and told me my first appointment would be the 8th March 2016. 2 weeks before my appointment, I got another letter from Rikshospitalet which said they had moved my appointment to 1st March 2016, which was just even better. It was only 1 week earlier, but everything counts here. Before my appointment, I received almost a book of papers with questions about my mental and physical health and everything you can imagine, basically. So many dumb questions, but turned out it was just for research to see if my answers changes after the transition. My first appointment, 1st March 2016, lasted for 1.5 hours. It included a conversation about my whole life in details, and it was quite frustrating trying to remember when everything happened. The doctor also quickly described how the process would be forward and informed me that it could take at least a year before I could start hormones. My next appointment was 3rd May and the one after that 23rd June, and it was usually around 2 months between the appointments. Most of the appointments were basically all about the same thing. Repetition, repetition, and repetition. I told about my life, then the doctor asked me strange questions. I had 4 appointments like this, just conversations, and after that I had 2 diagnosis conversations with 2 different doctors. The first one in November 2016 and the second one in February 2017. These 2 doctors had to agree that I had the diagnosis F.64.0 transsexualism. The first doctor actually had quitted when I was at the second doctor's conversation, so in my case there was just 1 doctor who agreed that I had the diagnosis. I was very close to cry after that appointment because after almost a year with conversations, it felt so surreal that hormones now were so close. Ever since I started at Rikshospitalet, I think I've had like 6 different doctors there, which has been quite a challenge, you know, to not just have 1 person to deal with. I got my first appointment with the endocrinologist 26th April 2017. Took a few blood samples and talked about the effects of starting testosterone. A few days later I got to know that my blood samples were just fine and I got the prescription for testosterone. 2nd May 2017 I got my very first injection with testosterone. At that point I was living far away from a doctor, so what I did was that I just went to the local doctor's office and asked if they could help me, and they could. So they put the needle in my butt and it was sore several days after. I could barely drive my car home from the doctor. Between the 2 first injections there were 6 weeks. And after that I've gotten an injection every 12th week. I had a checkup appointment at Rikshospitalet 20th September 2017 and everything was just fine. My testosterone level was a bit high, 39.7 nmol per liter, but then again I had an injection just a week earlier. Now I'm soon 1 whole year on testosterone, 2nd May 2017. And 23rd May I have my next appointment, one with the endocrinologist and one at the gender clinic with a doctor. Next thing on my list is top surgery, and since you here in Norway has to be on testosterone for at least a year before you can get it through Rikshospitalet, I'm hoping I'll get more information about it then. Fingers crossed. I feel pretty lucky that my journey at Rikshospitalet hasn't been too rough and actually has been quite smooth. With appointments not too far apart and just a bit over 1 year from my first appointment to first T-shot, yeah, I just feel blessed. I feel blessed because I've heard so many stories about people who's been more unlucky and had much worse experiences. It shouldn't be that way, and hopefully the future will bring an easier way for transgender people. If you've stuck with me through this whole video until the very end, then congrats! I hope I haven't bored you too much, and hopefully I can help someone with this. Thank you for your time, I hope you have a good day, and I will see you again in my next video. Goodbye.